Hi everyone, today we are continue to watch games of Vishwanathan Anand, 15th world champion. Let's start watching the game against Ruslan Ponomariov, Ukrainian chess player. Please push the like in advance and I promise you that it will be really interesting video. Okay, let's start. E4, C6, D4. Okay, it's Caro-Kann opening. Okay, d5, knight c3, d take on e4, knight take on e4, bishop f5. Okay, exist different moves, something like knight to f6 here, and after c3, this position is completely different than idea bishop f5. Okay, and exists one more move, knight to d7, to prepare knight f6 without doubling these two pawns. Okay, and I will show you one trap here. Sometimes white plays something like queen e2, and if black just do very natural move after knight d6, it's just mate. So try to remember it. So let's come back after knight e4, bishop f5, knight g3, bishop to g6, knight f3. White just continue their development. So knight d7 protected the e5 square because somewhere idea was not even knight e5 at first, h4 to force the opponent play something h6 or h5 to give for the bishop one extra square, and after this, if okay, let's see, after knight f6, h4, h6, here knight e5 with idea to take on g6 and double pawns and make the king's position so bad, but that's why we at first play knight to d7 to protect the e5 square from this idea. So h4, h6, h5, bishop to h7, bishop to d3, bishop takes on d3, queen takes on d3, e6. Okay, now we have standard main position of this variation where white feel small advantage here, but it's not a big thing, yeah, because here we have for white, of course, a lot of space on the king side, pawn on h5, stack a whole flank, and so on. But in general, black's position is so solid, yeah, because no weaknesses in the pawn structure, and this pawn structure just stop move d5, the only active strike in the position. So it means that black, if know some theoretical lines and understand all ideas, can be absolutely okay here. So bishop f4, knight to f6, and short castle. I think that okay, this game was a lot of time ago, so in those time theoretical lines was completely different, and now people plays here knight queen to a5, important move because we can't do this castle because king under attack. So if we play something like c3, next move will be impossible to play castle 2 because queen attack a2 pawn. So that's why this move queen a5 interfere to continue the plan. So the best move bishop to d2 to protect the king with the bishop, but after queen to c7, queen stay on a good position, and this is the best way how black can continue the game. But okay, bishop f4, knight f6. In those time, maybe Ponomarev didn't know about this possibility. A long castle, bishop to e7, knight to e4. This is standard idea here. Somewhere, if takes, knight f6, queen to e2, and if black do something like short castle, it's almost mate. Let's see, because it's a very standard idea here. After castle g4, we can sacrifice a pawn on g4, and if our opponent takes it, we can just play rook to g1. I don't know, maybe with this rook better to play, but okay, I think with this two can be okay. And if knight goes here, we can take a pawn. If pawn goes here, we can take this pawn. So attack will be just destructive for black. Okay, let's come back. So that's why main idea in this type of position to castle in different way. Uh, Sometimes it can be it depends on situation, because if we exchange queens, we can just castle to this side and don't worry about these things. Mm, so knight takes on e4, queen takes on e4, knight f6, queen to d3. Okay, queen to e2 is more natural, but queen d3 okay too. Queen to d5. Attacked the pawn on a2. Was possible, of course, to play king to b1, but okay, black just got some one more tempo to make a castle or something else. So that's why queen d5 it's okay. c4, and this game forced this endgame, queen to e4. Of course, we don't want to play queen to d2 to go back and so on. So queen takes on e4, knight takes on e4, and bishop e3. Of course, here was possible to play rook to f1, but if we can put on a passive position cheaper piece like bishop, it's better way than put our rook on a bad position, even if it's temporary. Okay, so bishop e3 protected the pawn, short castle. Now it's absolutely okay, because without queens, all threats for the black king is not real. So knight to e5, bishop d6, f3. We just want to remove this knight from active position. Knight to g3, rook h3, knight f5, bishop f2. Yes, the last few moves, black tried to attack something, but it's only a few attacks, nothing else. Rook to d8, and we can see that from this move, Vishay Anand started his plan and really conducted it well. So if you didn't watch our previous video, um, because two videos was before of this, try to find on our channel, please. And it was really interesting videos too, and there was a lot of attacks here, how Anand conducted attacks with really strong players, but we didn't see yet how he conduct endgames, and it's really nice. G4, he just capture more space on the flank. Yeah, now we have this advantage of this pawn on h5 that stuck a whole flank. So we must increase this tension and play g4. Okay, knight to e7. And here, okay, now you must try to the idea of the opponent and how to save your position from this idea. Because if white would do something else in the position, not the best move, they could lose all advantage, and it will be not very good for white, of course. So try to find the idea, black's idea here, and how to interfere to conduct this idea. 1, 2, 3. Okay, of course, main idea for black is to play c5, to just attack this pawn on d4, and impossible to take on c5, because the knight will be unprotected. So it means that we must stop this move c5, and we can do it with two moves, yeah, with c5 or with knight to d3. But a very important thing, if we play c5, it's a huge mistake in the position. It's a huge positional mistake, because now we give for our opponent this square for the knight on d5 in the center of the board, and knight can go after that on to f4 or to e3. This is really crazy mistake. And one more problem of this move is that pawn on d4 will be backward. So that's why c5 it's a huge mistake, and we must do knight d3. Yeah, we just put back our knight from the. We took out from the attack of this bishop, so everything nice, and we protected one more time this a square on c5. b5 again. He tried to provoke us to play something with this pawn, but we must be like a stone. Just don't do nothing with that and protect it with the pawn. Because if we play c take on b, again, it's a very big mistake. After knight to d5, we have this isolated pawn. We have this nasty knight on d5, and only black can do something in the position. So we must be careful with this type of moves, because all moves with your pawns you must do very careful, because pawn structure uh, show all problems in the position. If you do a lot of moves with your pawns, uh, you can do a lot of problems in your position in general. So that's why our pawn structure must be under control. So b3 was played in the game. So bishop c7, rook to h1. Now our rook on h3 is not active, so we must activate it. Rook to h1, bishop to b6. He want to take our pawn on d4, and here really really nice that Anand found the best move, knight to c5. He just interfere for the opponent to attack the pawn on d4, and he evaluated everything right, that this trade on c5 is not appropriate for black. Let's see. In the game was rook to e8. He just improved a little bit his rook, but not too much. So king to c2, we just want to improve our position of the king. So b take on c4, b take on c4, and it's understandable why black didn't do something else, because very very passive position. We don't have enough space in the position. We don't have enough squares for our pieces. That's why he tried to change something in the position, but it was no, it's impossible in this current moment. So b take on c4, b take on c4, bishop take on c5, d take on c5, and this position is bad. Okay, try to understand the main problem of the black's position, because if we understand our problems, we can try to to change it. Yeah, try to understand, and maybe you will find the plan how to improve it in the black's position. So try to understand and find the plan. 1, 2, 3. Of course, main problem of the black position is the knight on e7, because he restricted as much as it possible. Yeah, because knight can go to d5, to f5, to g6. If he go to c8, he will be restricted even with c5 pawn. So knight is passive, and uh, of course we can't improve it, because it's too much time. And even if we imagine that black have this time, hard to understand how to do that even with big quantity of time. So e5, rook to d6, very important idea. Because of course it's not a good thing for black to take on d6. The only problem in the white's position, these two pawns on c file, that somewhere in after a lot of moves can be weak. So if black takes this rook on d6 after c take on d6, okay, even impossible to play knight c8, but because d7 fork. But okay, no, if even not d7, something like c5, we just protected this pawn on d6, and we can see that the last problem in white's position just disappeared, and black have everything yet, and it's just terrible for black. So that's why take on d6 it was impossible. And what it gives for white, they have possibility to put these two rooks on d file and to capture this file. So because if you play something like rook to d2 after trade, it will be not a convenient thing. Yeah, because really hard to to continue something in the position, because here he traded this one pair of rooks, and after rook to d7, f6, king go to e6, it will be really hard to do something something more in the position. That's why he wants to save two pair of rooks. Maybe later he will change his opinion about it and he will do this trade, but now he wants to save these two rooks. So rook to b8, rook to d1, rook to b7, and now rook to d8. Of course, a main idea was to play rook to b8 and somewhere to make this invasion in the white's position. So white want to stop it and play rook to d8. Takes, king to h7. Now we capture this rook on this file d file. Our opponent captured this file, but we can try to do it to do something with our captured file, and he can't do something. Rook to f8. We want to force him to play f6. Okay, bishop to e1. We protected b4 square because somewhere this rook wanted to play there and do something. That's if we play something like, okay, I don't know, rook d8 after rook to b4, rook king to c3, rook to b1 possible, and the idea is to play rook f1 and try to attack something. If our opponent force us to go back and defend something, of course we will lose a big part of our advantage. That's why we must do something aggressive and stop his active ideas. So rook bishop e1. Because bishop on f2 didn't do something important, that's why bishop on e1 protected b4 square and can do a little bit more things. Rook to d7, bishop to c3, knight to g8, a4. One more important moment in the endgame. We must improve everything in the position. Our rook is active. Our bishop is active. Maybe king is not active enough. We want maybe to go even to h6 to a6. But the problem is that rook in one move will be active and start a lot of nasty ideas for us. So that's why we want to do something else. So we have everything active. King protected everything, so that's why he is active too. And we can improve our pawn structure. After a4, a5, a6, we want to push this pawn to this position, and somewhere we will have idea rook to b7, rook b8, and rook to b7, and our opponent will know will be distracted because he won't take on b7, because after take on b7, this pawn will be unstoppable. So we want to push this pawn to a6 and stack this weakness on a7 and push this pawn because somewhere it's closer to the queen. So a4. G6. Of course, if black will just do something like king to h8 and king to h7, my plan will work well. So uh, impossible to save the position after this plan. So that's why g6, a5, takes, and the problem is now that he opens this way for the king to run, but the problem is that pawn on h6 stacked on the black square, it's worse than on the white square because our bishop can attack it, and now we have these two pawns really so far from each other, and this bishop really will be nasty for black because one piece will be forced to save this pawn on and stay on very passive position. So king g7, rook b8, knight to e7, a6, king to f7, bishop to a5. Interesting move too, because somewhere we have one more idea, bishop to b6, and now you can see this benefits of this pawn on a6, that now we can even sacrifice our bishop and this pawn will be unstoppable. So knight to f5, bishop to b6, knight to e3, king to c3, king to e6, rook to c8. So we can sacrifice it even without rook on b8 because of course these two pawns will be unstoppable. So king to f5, takes knight d1, king to b5, f4, rook d2, bishop takes on a7, and here no chances to play it because all counterplay connected to these two pawns, that this black can take this pawn and just push the pawn. But the problem is that how many moves is it? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 moves to pass a queen. But if we look at this part of the board, we can see that 1, 2, 3 much faster, and it doesn't give any active chances to stop this plan. So rook to b2, king to a3, rook to b1, rook to b6, here, takes, and c6, second pawn can run, and impossible to stop it. Here, maybe for a second you can think, oh, it's a problem possible with the king and so on, but no problems exactly. Because c7, rook b1, king to a3, and if he continue to check us, we can just run in this direction and go away from any checks. So that's why Vishay Anand won this game, and in very strong way, without chances for the opponent. He made everything like wrote in the books, in the best books about positional playing. So it's very nice. He showed that he is not only really good or the best in the calculations. He is one of the best even in positional um, maneuvering and so on. It's really nice. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.